All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Jackie Stephen. I am the Managing Director of Municipal Captioning. I will be here all the way until 4 o'clock, so come by and talk to me. I am joined by Sharon Huang from Pasadena, who is going to talk about some of her uses for AI tools, and by my old friend John Hauser, who is going to talk about some of his uses. I'm not going to say what they are yet. I want to start by asking you guys a few questions. And my first one is, how many of you are using AI tools? And I'm going to make a differentiation here. Things that are built in that you were using otherwise, like Premiere now, AI enhanced, I'm not really counting that. We know that it's kind of baked into a lot of things. And that probably hasn't changed your workflow with Premiere at all. But how many of you are using anything along the lines of some of the tools available, ChatGPT, Descript, anything? So what do you do and what are you using?
Well, I was using Descript for a project, just a series of interviews, just to help me organize them. And then I really I just subscribed to ChatGPT about 3 months ago, and every time I have a question on anything, it was feeding it. I'm just trying to learn, how to utilize it and how to prompt it.
So you're doing the paid version, the $20 a month version, yeah. Autumn, I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah, similarly, just I've used it for ChatGPT for a couple of grants to just say, write a paragraph describing this. And it's kind of uncanny how I was surprised at how useful it was. I'll just say that. And then
And you're using the paid version also?
Yeah, this probably addresses your baked in already, but my God, the note-taking function on some of the things like Zoom and stuff, just like game-changing. It saves me a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say on the downside, I threw in a lot of interviews, half-hour documentary I was doing on what's happening in our forest. And I threw in about 8 interviews. I gave them information on this ChatGPT, on what I wanted to say in it, and write me a script. And it just made up a lot of quotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was dangerous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely need to be careful. Now, when you say you, these are recorded interviews, right?
Yeah.
And so what did you use to transcribe them to put them into ChatGPT?
Oh, I think I pulled them out of my editing software. I think it was using Resolve.
And it automatically, again, gives you the transcripts
I use the transcript
button for.
Resolve.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I use the paid version as well, and along with again note taking and using it for creative writing, we also use it to teach our members, right? So how to use that as well. So a lot of members, we have a garden club that uses our facilities. We have young kids using for school projects. So we actually do ChatGPT as a tool along with the editing software or whatever it is, and then they use that to write newsletters or refine their existing scripts, etc. So it's becoming one of the wrenches in our toolbox.
Right. And so have you developed like a curriculum for teaching it or?
Not yet, but that's the next on the list.
Okay.
I'm a software engineer myself, so I teach programming and development. So and I actually use ChatGPT to write code and write apps. So I'm refining that to start coming with syllabus that I can teach the members and access to the tool.
Cool. Yes.
ChatGPT is great at creating syllabus. Create the syllabus. Like I find I do a lot of classes, and so it helps me create a structure.
Yeah.
It just gives you that thought. You don't take minutes, hours out of your life thinking of how the flow will go. But you still have to refine it.
Boy, howdy. So as you know, because I also use it to do outlines. I think it's brilliant for that, right? I don't want it writing for me. It doesn't sound anything like me. But for doing an outline, it's great. But it also, you do have to to refine it. So just left with, this was the workshop. I said, we'll be doing a workshop. It's this long. It'll be 3 people. I'm going to be talking about these things. Can you give me an outline? And so then it writes things like, AI is transforming industries, including journalism and media production.
Yeah.
Community media centers can leverage AI for efficiency and I'm like, no. So you do have to kind of work with it.
One trick for that is to actually write a more detailed prompt.
Yeah.
And consider the role. So as a producer working at CMAC,
Yeah.
if you give very specific things, including like the organization you work at and what is the current project, it makes it much more concise and much more precise.
Yeah, absolutely. No, intentionally, I left those details off. I gave it, the workshop thing, and I'm like, what are you going to do? The description of this workshop, and so that's the kind of stuff it wrote. So the next part of that is exactly. Then I had to be much more specific in the prompting for it. Klaus Dicey, yeah.
Sorry, I also wanted to point out that California State University, all 23, but especially Fresno State is, I think, like one of the forerunners in integrating ChatGPT into the education process. So I don't know the details of how it's going to work within the next couple of years, but I think we can expect that ChatGPT as a source on a journal article that you're putting out will be seen as not completely non-credible, or so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask it where it got its sources from. Yeah.
Yes, you can.
And there are other platforms. Sharon, I think we were talking about that yesterday. There's so you're
So I heavily use ChatGPT, the free version, and I use Canva's AI-powered apps and Magic Studio heavily as well, but on the paid version, and Perplexity AI more for research and sourcing information. I don't use it heavily as I do ChatGPT, which does have the same features that Perplexity AI has, but I have differentiation of what I use both for. But ChatGPT is my child.
And she's a protective mom. I dissed it. We had a conversation yesterday, and I dissed GPT, and I will not do that again.
It's like calling your kid ugly.
So it's great for if you need more information on a topic you are not familiar with. It sources and compiles information from different web pages and websites, and it'll underline certain content and say, it'll have a number in the corner and say, oh, this is from here. You can click on it. It becomes an embedded link, and it'll lead you to that web page specifically, but it compiles everything in one space.
The other good thing about Perplexity is that it gives you 6 or 7 like the old related searches thing, kind of different takes on what you ask. So all you have to do is click on those. And that's something I haven't seen from some of the other tools. It's one of the reasons why I like Perplexity as well, even though I have no experience with it. I just accept preparing for this panel.
Well, yeah, I think that fall into your question too.
So is anyone else using any tools other than ChatGPT? Yes, tell me about those.
We use, I use Cursor AI.
Mm-hmm.
So using it to basically write little programs to help streamline the workflow. So for example, we get captions from one of our cities in the Zoom caption format, which is obviously not 608 standard. So I use this Cursor AI to basically in an hour write a program that splits the captions and refines them.
Cool.
So I don't have to do the work because it's a pain in the butt.
And
Nice.
that's cursor.ai or cursor AI?
Cursor.ai.
Okay.
Yeah, and it uses different, so it's more for programming and coding. It does a lot of
Fantastic,
based
yeah.
stuff. But the one, it has different AI models that it will use. So I think Claude is the most kind of popular
Yeah.
coding itself.
Okay.
And then it's got, you basically feed it the information and you just give it some examples and it literally is like magic.
And are you using, is it a paid version of Cursor AI or is it the free?
That was the free one.
Okay.
So the free one you get 200 prompts and it does them super fast.
Yep.
And then after that I think it's $20 a month for the basic plan.
Yeah, a lot of them are right around there, you know, 19, 20.
The reason why I'm so excited about that is my experience trying to get code out of AI is that, yeah, it'll write your code and you'll spend an hour and a half debugging it and you'll find out that it faked the innermost function. It doesn't exist. And so I don't need to wind up, you know, I can figure out how to write code. I don't want to have to spend an hour and a half correcting code that I didn't write and that will never work.
So one trick is to resubmit the same code back and say, hey, fix the error.
Oh yeah,
So just keep
yeah.
filing it until it does that.
Yeah, which turns an hour and a half session into 4 hours. But
So this is like Oppo workshop. We're actually learning from you guys. So I saw some other hands. What other tools are being used?
The main one we're using, Adobe Premiere, audio to text.
Mm-hmm.
That comes especially handy because maybe you saw our facilities at CMAC here in Fresno, we have our podcast studio, and these long form conversations, you know, members may want to chop out something, a section, they made a mistake, whatever, and they're just looking at that transcript, deleting the sentence or, you know, that segment they want to get rid of, cuts it from the timeline just by highlighting the text and deleting that. So it's really handy in those long form kind of conversations and applications. As an organization, not as much we use it, but we teach that and show members our Adobe Premiere being our primary editor, those integrated AI tools. And then we also host a workshop, AI for creators. We don't necessarily go through like direction on how to use all the AI tools, but we show what's available,
Right.
and things to look out for, and, you know, watch out for, you know, those subscriptions and things like that, you know, try to get folks information to start billing monthly for different things. But, you know, so yeah, that's the way we use it.
Very cool. Yeah, I know Brian was talking to us when you guys were starting to build that curriculum. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like I like to play as an artist. I've used a lot of different ones. Midjourney, everybody's used that. Creo, like there's familiar with Creo at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, OpenAI has
Dolly.
yeah, there's a lot of different functions. Runway is fun. Video and stuff like that. Pika also is fun.
Now, are you, like, you do the free version on all of these, or do you switch from one to another and doing paid versions, or?
I hate to admit I do pay.
That's okay.
And yeah, because it's just fun. It's just a tool for reference mostly. Because I'm traditionally trained as a visual, painter, or so it's fun to, instead of Google searching images, just go right in there. I need a picture of blah, 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 blah. And then wow, you have 4 different versions, and then you can tweak that. And then it's like, okay, this is close to what I want, and then there I have what I
Right.
need. And then I work from that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I try to get my students to do the same as well.
I've
Yes.
been using, on the Adobe suite, I've started using their, like, Firefly, I think it's called, so their generative, like, integrated AI stuff. And it's kind of nice because, all of the AI data points are sourced from Adobe stock photographs. And so, like, it's ethical, so I feel very, very, very on a high horse when I do it. But also, it's really useful because we're currently designing a scene for the school newspaper, and the way we go about it is that I'm not a good, like, traditional artist at all, so I have someone draw the thing, sketched out on paper, I scan it, throw it in Adobe, and then I use generative color, and then, like, recolor the entire thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I can piggyback off of that too, because Adobe is crazy with it. They have in there, I teach After Effects classes at Africa Center, and the whole new AI stuff it's like what used to only be limited to After Effects, you can now do in Premiere using some of the AI tools, and Photoshop and Firefly is crazy.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't know, it's where it's happening, get into it.
And I mean, the stuff in Photoshop, it's as I said, it's kind of seamless. It's working the same, but boy, is it just easier popping stuff out. Which you could always mask stuff, and
Like rotoscoping, just click, image select, boom. There's no
I can get really lost in the rabbit hole playing with AI, so I will just sit with DALL-E and for fun. And do we have I'll show you the goofy thing around the holidays, and I have no idea why I decided to do this. So this is just one, and it was a silly example, but you know, it kept me entertained for a while. Let's see. So you may not be able to read it because the text is really small, but first I asked if it knew who Thomas Kincaid was, and it gave me a little information. And I said, you know, I'd like you to make me a picture to illustrate 8 maids a-milking, this was over the holidays, in the style of Thomas Kincaid. And then it stops. It says, no, I can't do that because I can't rip off an artist. So I asked about what the issue was, and then I said, okay, well, what I want you to do is be inspired by the work of Thomas Kincaid and make me these images. So, you know, then it comes out with like a nice, very Thomas Kincaid-y looking 8 maids a-milking. But first of all, it's not got 8 maids. So then I corrected it, and I'm like, okay, could you do that with 8, right? And so the next one, let's see if I can get it always corrects and is like, oh, I'm sorry, here's one with 8. And so then I was like, nope, definitely not 8, and there's, I think, a half a cow somewhere in there. So I'm like, can we refine this a little more? So we went back and forth, and this kept me entertained for like the better part of like 2 hours, because I'm cracking up. You know? And we try it again, and we try it again, and then I kind of gave up on the 8 maids, and I, like, you know, told it to shift colors.
Remember the hour and a half? This is the extended session.
Yes. And so then I was like, well, take our 8 maids and let's put them in a city setting. And so then I got this. I like how the cow is kind of laying down in front of it. Yeah, there are several missing limbs on all of these. And then I was lose the glowing light and modernize the look a little of the maids. And so then they all look like baristas. I mean, and I love how the people in the background are like watching them, like they're on display. So I'm like, all right, let's get rid of that. And then I asked for what it wouldn't do. I was like, I want them in classic French maids and kind of sexy. And it's like, nope, sorry, I am not going to sexualize. Whoa. And I'm like, okay, could you just shorten their skirts? And it complied, so it gave me the maids in shorter skirts.
Ooh, ankles.
So, and it kind of went on like that for a while. It never gave me the right number. In another one that I had done, see if I can find it really quick, I was teaching a class in generative AI, and I'm going to find it. Maybe that was it. Nope. And so I just wanted a, oh, there it is. I found it on the big screen. No. I'm not finding it. I wanted a title page for it, and it gave me generative spelt wrong. And I said, okay, could you correct that? And that was another hour and a half, like, rabbit hole of, no, here is how you spell generative. And I put all of the letters, and it would spell it wrong every single time. And every time it would be, oh, I'm sorry, I'll come back and do that for you again. So what we know about image making is that images that contain words are treated as just a look. It's like sight reading. And so once it gets it wrong, again, probably I went through 25 tries and it never, ever got it right.
And this was the paid version, or was this the free version?
This was the paid version.
Okay.
So
I just saved myself $20 a month.
But that said, this was also a year ago. And
Okay.
I think that, there's a whole lot of change that's happened in that year. We're getting closer to generally having 5 fingers on each hand, although I still see ones that, miss that mark. So, yes?
I'm not going to raise my hand.
No, it's okay.
But I was going to say, I've tried DALL-E, and tried Midjourney? with
Yeah,
text?
I've used Midjourney with text.
Okay, because I found between the two, Midjourney for some reason seems to come through. So try them next time and see, compare the two and see which one works better for whatever.
Yeah.
you found.
I find that when I'm, and again, I am using this purely for entertainment for the most part, right? And then occasionally something that I'll pop into a workshop. But there's definitely a different look to each of the, image making. And DALL-E has a particular look to it. Like I can almost always spot if it's DALL-E, right? I saw another hand. John.
My name is John, and I feel like I came into the advanced class and missed the basic class. I have never successfully used AI because I do not have the patience that you just talked about. I have never successfully been able to tell it anything because when I see that blank screen, I freeze and I don't know how to communicate with it. I feel like how the guys in the elevator in the BBC Scotland when they were in an elevator that was only voice activated. Don't say it, and it would go, and then keep on going. So I don't have played with some of the things you're talking about, but I'm not sure if there's an entryway to start talking about this because it seems like a lot of people are in the advanced section, and maybe I am the little more hand-holding section, but I also feel like I'm kind of like in an AA meeting and missing that.
So.
My wife leaves the room when I try to talk to Siri.
What I would say is do free versions and give it simple tasks. And that's how you're going to learn how to, sort of use it. The thing that, and I think Autumn mentioned this, the thing that I use it for very successfully is when we have to answer an RFP or grant writing, that type of thing. So if I was, back at a media center, I would have totally used it for grant writing because grant applications as well as RFPs can be incredible, the guidelines for what you need to do and what it's asking you to do and how you need to present the information can be like 45, 50 pages long. And so we actually fed all of the details into my chat and said write an outline based on it. And again, I'm not turning that in and saying, here's my, RFP, but it gave me a great outline, and it gave me an outline that then said, you need to have a footnote on the bottom of page 3 that says this, and, or that brings up these points. So really effective and made me, took my anxiety level down because I was afraid I was going to miss that one note I was supposed to have on, one section by making sure. Then I had a little checklist, make sure you do all of these things. So I think it's great for that. I'm a filmmaker and use it often for storyboards. And again, there's a lot of paid, relatively cheap, but most of them have free trials or limited free usage. But I can't draw for a hoot. But I was able to do really, really great and very quick storyboards in, I can't remember which one I used. Might have been actually.
Studio Binder?
I have to, Finder.
Binder. So they have digital storyboarding, an application, a program embedded in their own website that you can use if you don't want to draw it manually. And you can create shapes in there, block it out, and it's great just to practice or just for your own personal pet project that you want to see it envisioned in a digital format.
Right. And you can also just incorporate photographs in there as well, so, and have those. So really great for that type of use. Yes?
I was going to say for a more kind of mundane use for AI technology, we started using it to, basically if we're on Zoom and we're having a staff meeting, we record it and feed the transcript from Zoom into it to kind of summarize what's gone on in the meeting. And then it'll a lot of times give us a list of activities or things that we need to target. So it's really helpful to just kind of summarize so you're not sitting here taking a million frickin' notes, and then you're like, okay, now I've got some action items that I can go and follow up on, and I don't have to put that
Yes.
For all of you up there, have you found with your operations and potentially folks that your organization members, community members, have you found any like unique use cases for AI to help members say produce or learn video production as well?
Aside from building curriculums, using it, which it can be really great for, I have mostly, I was out of community media by the time AI was rolling around. So we developed a curriculum just, again, because it was more hobby. It was for fun. And we were deeply steeped in kind of using AI tools for captioning, right? And so because of that, we kind of went down a rabbit hole with it, and I decided to build this curriculum, and let's teach community media centers like how to use AI and build programs. So a couple of the things that we came up with one of the centers that we worked with was using it as a treatment form. So they created an outline of a, program treatment, and using ChatGPT, I think, was the basis, and that helped the producers. So then it became a form, and it got sent to the appropriate people, and it prompted them, and it helped them some with the writing. So,
for me, I would like to add on that Canva is also my child. So I teach a social media essentials class, whether that's like a static post or a reel, video, short, etc. I do always show and promote Canva's AI-powered applications and the Magic Studio, just because it's way faster and more accessible, especially since a lot of our community members and producers, they don't know how to edit, they don't know how to use Premiere, they don't want to, they just want something fast and easy that they can do themselves or have someone else do it for them. So I always say, try playing around with Canva. They have, background remover, the Magic Suite. You can, even with a video, just remove the background there. It's one click, that's all you need to do. You don't have to go through Premiere. You can collaborate with others. So always try with Canva first, I would suggest, as an easy base foundation before trying out Premiere or DaVinci if you're not comfortable with the interface in there.
Right. And is Canva subscription a monthly subscription?
There's a free version.
So because Pasadena Media is a nonprofit, you do get it for free. So we do have the Premiere features. So I highly suggest if you are a nonprofit, get on top of that. But I would highly suggest trying out the paid version as well. It has a lot more features unlocked that you can use, especially for their Magic Studio, which are all basically AI powered.
Just a quick follow-up on that. As far as the members using that, you require them to be at facilities to use the login, or they have their own login?
No, Canva is a free program that you can just make an account with. You'll automatically be on a free account. And you can do it at home. You can do it.
You get more features with the paid, but again,
but you can use it anywhere. You don't have to come to our studio and do it. You can play with it at home first. You can even do it over Zoom and share your screen and see how you can play with it. But we don't restrict our members to come into our studio for that.
And Canva paid monthly is $15, $16.
Okay.
So it's pretty affordable.
yeah.
Thanks.
Yes.
On that, the Canva has some limitations, but how often do you utilize those applications?
Every day. I have to, especially for my daily tasks and what I make, since I do focus on social media for Pasadena Media. Use it every day. There is just so much out there. You can even look at templates made by others who use Canva. They have a lot of great stock footage, videos, photos, graphics, frames, things like that. But you can further edit and adjust them. So it's free reign on Canva. I hope all of you have heard of it or at least used it. But it's great and very accessible.
Well, this is all a good segue, so why don't you
perfect.
get yourself plugged in? I want to say one last thing kind of on the chat stuff, or not the last thing, but one more thing, because I never actually stopped talking. You guys did bring your prayer cards with you, right? Is about prompting. And, John, if you're having trouble with it, think about again, start simple. but prompts do have to give a lot of information, right? You have to understand that what it's doing is compiling information and sorting information for you. And so clarity is incredibly important. Detail is important. It's an iterative process. So test, and when you don't get the right thing, I mean, again, no, that wasn't, 8 maids. Test and learn, let it learn and try again. Do stuff over and over as much as you can provide context. So often, like, the prompt that I write will be much longer than what I'm actually want to get out of it. What I need to get out of it just for a couple of paragraphs. Yeah, that's it. That's what I want to say.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, what I do at Pasadena Media focuses on creating voiceover scripts for our PMNs, social media captioning. I also do a lot of design in Canva. This was made in Canva, so do your presentations in Canva, it's great. But a lot of design elements I use Canva for, and then a lot more textual-based elements I would do in ChatGPT. I don't do like image generators here because I don't really need it unless I can't find some specific stock footage online that I really need to have it for, then I may play around with it, but I usually use it for entertainment purposes. But I am quite specific with my prompting in ChatGPT. In the beginning, I kept it very general. But now I talked to John about this, and he was like, "Oh, you're a dominatrix. No room, no room for error." But ChatGPT, I have become quite specific in how I want it organized. So I will start with what I want and the type of voice I would need it in, a format that I need it laid out, and how it should be organized. So these are for our Pasadena Media news updates. This goes out every day of the week, sometimes even Saturday. My twin, my partner Angela there, we are a 2-person team on this specific project. Every week we have a PMN, and so we are given by Jasiri back there a topic, whether that's from local events, Pasadena Senior Center, maybe it's Flintridge Center, they have an event going on, or they have a press release that came out. We do basically a promo for them, and it goes out, it's like 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes even, and we showcase to our audience like, hey, this is what's going on, maybe you will be interested in, sort of a resource for our audience. But since I have to make this every week, I have to make these scripts for Angela to voice, so I'm quite specific in how I want it organized. And so I will get the information from wherever I'm given, whether that's a web page, a press release, a Google Drive sheet that I'm given, and then I will put it in ChatGPT. I still have to edit it because some of the information I get are not necessary or it's not included. Then I would adjust it and make sure that all I need is in there. Of course, on the homepage of ChatGPT, it says ChatGPT can make mistakes. It's rarely my star child, but it works. So, as you can see, ChatGPT has its own version, and no matter what, I still have to review and edit it myself. So I'm not blindly just inputting this on a document and just using it blatantly. I still have to review and edit it myself and make sure it's in the format and layout that I want. So highly suggest you do that as well. There is, Jasiri mentioned, like her daughter, she would put it into an AI and then put it into another AI to humanize it. I would suggest you just review it yourself. It's much faster and more accessible, and it's just quicker and more efficient. But again, I still review and edit it myself and then have that ready. Of course, I'm keeping in mind Angela's voice. Maybe there's certain grammatical structure that I have to keep in mind, and then adjust it myself, because ChatGPT will be like, oh, here, this is the script, and then I'll say, okay, give me another one, and it doesn't. It lies. So then at that point, I'm just going to edit it and review it myself. So that's what I would do for the voice over scripting. And then for the captions, for the social media captions, again, there's a certain format and layout I want for these social media captions. So including emojis, hashtags, different, paragraphing of it even. I have a certain way, so ChatGPT will give me the content organized, and then I would readjust it myself. Of course, you can continue to, give me more hashtags or add more emojis, but at that point, I would add my own. So again, the final product is still me re-editing and readjusting and reviewing. Yes?
How effective is the hashtag in terms of like relevance to specific trends that are happening?
So it focuses more on getting hashtags from the information you've inputted it in. If you want a specific hashtag, you would still have to include that information in the information that you have spit it in, you have prompted it.
So your approach is more to do with what the content is, not really a trend, so to speak?
I do both. So sometimes what I do with ChatGPT is I'll take half of ChatGPT's, like maybe a few that I like, and then I'll research some that may be more relevant to a certain topic that my post is about, and then include that, or I create our own. So it really depends on, maybe you only need like 3 hashtags, but maybe I need 10 hashtags and I want to mix it up. Some are more general, some will be more specific. So I like to have a balance of both. And so this is the final product of our PMNs. You can't hear Angela's beautiful voice, but it all comes together. We have the caption, we've tagged the organization, we've had the information visually, but also as a voice, and it comes together in this final product. And there's a different topic, organization, event going on each day.
How long was that workflow take?
So if I would do depending on how much we have scheduled already, I can do between 5 to 10 scripts. It'll probably take me, just for scripting, 2-3 hours, because I'm readjusting it and I still have to find the links, I have to find the people's social media handles and do that. And then captions is another one, and then thumbnailing is another process. So it could take the whole day for just to focus on several PMNs at the same time.
Okay. And how do you organize that? How do you organize yourself? So do you have today is going to be all writing day, and then I'm going to follow through the content, or do you take one project?
I actually try to do it all on one day. So I am in the beginning portion before I get it to Angela. So I would always start with writing out all the voiceover scripts through ChatGPT, have that ready, and then go into thumbnailing for our social media, which is just a lot faster because I'm just putting images into a template that I've already designed. And then captioning, I would say, take longest as well, because I have to split it into Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And they all have different character counts, or they have different formats. So captioning can take a bit, but I would try to do all of this I would just separate one day dedicated to PMNs. Mm-hmm. Yes?
So you're saying one day, but that's also with your level of expertise, right? So for folks who might be introduced or starting to work here in this, or if you have a boss here that's already considering doing AI and doing all that stuff, what would be a realistic timeline, especially if you're new to the role or you're considering incorporating the role into someone's duties?
So because my duties and my specific tasks are quite, specific, so depending on what your needs are, I would say start with, creating 1 or 2 scripts or 1 or 2 revisions of, a proposal that you're looking to create or review, or even when you're designing, start with 1 post. And make sure you can maybe templatize. I highly suggest templatizing a design so that you can use it, especially for a consistent scenarios or context that you need to reuse it in, that you can just plop in a different picture or different text. So templatizing, I would say, really helps it make it your workflow more efficient. Mm-hmm. So all our PMN thumbnails are all templatized, but it's all going to have different graphics in the beginning and different text. That's pretty much it. Mm-hmm.
And I would only say start small. Just make it just like in doing video, don't make an hour-long documentary your very first project, right? Make a 1-minute piece.
And make it really good.
And make it really good.
And then reuse it too in different formats. Actually incorporated in the show formats that goes on the channel.
So if you like are posting on social media, but you're also posting it for like TV, you do want to be aware of aspect ratios and frame ratios. Canva does have that adjusted for you, but you want to make sure, Instagram does square ratios now. I know they're moving towards not that, which I have a gripe about. But LinkedIn can also use square ratios, but YouTube, maybe it's a 9:16 format compared to a 16:9 for YouTube videos. So you want to consider that as well. Go ahead, Jasiri.
Just speaking, Marcella, to your point, because these two ladies are so amazing and they do templatize everything, when we have interns who come in who already have that basic editing ability, but maybe aren't too familiar with their processes or what we do, it's easy for them to actually step into it, and then they're getting their feet wet. Now we're like, okay, we need 2, okay, we need 3, ramp them up, because that's our life, right? We're putting out stories pretty quickly. And so the template really is helpful to letting these ladies train and teach folks, but then it also makes their lives easier when I'm delayed on getting
And then content creation, I have to create celebration posts, which is, it's not every day, but specific days there are some celebration that's happening, and I need to make this. Also, I would spend about a day doing. I would do about, on average, 8 of them, and that includes captioning for different social media platforms. But when I create this, I use their stock footage, but maybe I don't always love their stock footage, so I have to use their Magic Studio to extend it. And maybe I want to elongate their bodies or add more, but I would say AI in Canva is not always preferable. As you can see, they don't always have what I want. So again, you just try again. And again, even after this is AI generated, I would still have to edit it. As you can see, it adds a background, which I don't want. I would remove it and then continue to adjust it, whether that's, blocking the tag on the lower right of the bottom apron. I don't want that tag, and I will have to continue to design it and block it. So again, it's still using what Canva has, but I am still adjusting it through their own apps, their features that are built in-house, and creating it from there. And of course, I can share this with my team members and see how maybe they want to readjust it or if they approve it. So it's great for that. To create content and make it fun. You're still adjusting it, you're still editing it in some way, and making it different from the templates that's already in there. Yeah, so Canva is great for that. Now, it's also great to edit photos. Very fast, very easy. I don't have to mask it out. I don't have to feather it in Photoshop, but I can just do it in Canva. There's this AI app called Image Upscaler. And as you can see, the original headshot is not ideal. But if you do image upscaler in Canva, it will depixelate all your pixels in the original headshot, and then you just have to further edit it, whether that's adjusting the contrast, the tint, the temperature, so on and so forth. As you can see behind her, she has some pine cones, which look like her hair. So just be careful of using background remover because it can become part of a person's body. But it's great for efficient and fast photo editing, and I need to use it for thumbnailing for our own passive media produced shows. So it's quick and easy for that, especially if I have to get this out to another colleague and pass it along the pipeline. But it's great for photo editing. I do a lot of that in Canva as well. And of course, social media captioning is used through ChatGPT. So for the celebration post, I have to create captions, and I want the hashtag to focus on the celebration day, but different platforms have different character count limits. For Twitter, there's the limit is 280 characters on the free plan. If you have Twitter Blue, you can go up to 4,000 characters. For Threads, you can have no more than 500 characters. So I have to adjust this all the time manually. It can become quite tedious. So ChatGPT does it for me. I'm very specific with what the prompts I will use in ChatGPT would be for social media captioning and adjustment. So I would, say, hey, create a social media caption using this information in third-person voice with emojis and hashtags. and then they would give me the caption. For Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube, they don't really have much of a limit that I will consistently pass, so they can all be the same. But for Twitter and Threads, I have to adjust it. Especially for Twitter, it's quite limiting. So for Twitter, I'll say, no more than 280 characters, but more than 260 characters with no hashtags. Only the celebration title has a hashtag. And then for Threads, give me a few hashtags, no more than 500 characters, but more than 480 characters. So it's very specific on how I'm prompting for social media, and then it'll pump it out. Of course, if it's not to my liking, I would make it rewrite it until it gets to a point that I can readjust it myself more easily.
Crushing the creativity. You see how she's using this as a tool? I mean, it's part of a workflow, and she wants what she wants, you know? So this is augmented stuff. It's not ChatGPT being creative or Canva being creative. It's like, boom, do this, do this, do this.
Yeah, and so this, I would do 8 celebration posts, and I have to make 8 captions, but for each platform, I would spend quite a bit of amount in a day to do this as a separate project. But yeah, that's what I would use AI for. This is my daily, weekly to-go tasks that I have to focus on. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So we're going to send it over to John. Whoop.
Here you go.
So while John's getting set up, I'm going to, one thing that I would really love to see in centers all over, because I think it's incredibly necessary, not just for people like John who need the teaching AI in your centers. Consider it part of your media literacy curriculum. It's there, it's being used, and you should be teaching people how to use it responsibly. So
Okay, let's try this. Nope, that only gives me the screenshot. Okay. Yeah, but I don't see that it's not working on my display, so. I'm trying to get the mouse.
There it is.
Where is it? Oh, there it
You
is.
have to
Okay.
move it and then move it too.
Yeah. And then extended display only gives me that, and I've only got the screenshot there.
You just have to mirror it, I believe.
Yeah, you just have to mirror, click. Ah. There you go.
Okay.
yay.
Thank you. Okay, so this is about 2 weeks new. This thing you see here, the captions you see on the screen, that's something that Apple has added called live captions. It's in beta. I'm not on the latest version of Mac OS. I didn't think it was going to be available. However, I wound up trying it. I read an article about it. I tried it, and I have it. So this comes free with, how many people use Macs here? Okay, most of you. How many people use iPads or have iPads? Okay, at least half. The other thing, let's see. Oop, didn't want to do that. Okay, we'll get rid of this. So I've been doing QR codes on my presentations for 10 years now, before it was cool. So go ahead and take a screenshot or take a picture of that, and then you won't have to wind up, you'll have these notes. And this is literally just notes. And I was trying to, maybe this will help John with things. I was trying to figure out how do you wind up evaluating AI? And this is way more cerebral than just getting in and playing with the tools. But my first thing is that with tools, it's kind of personal. And so for the same class of tools, try multiple tools. And you may wind up working better with one than another.
Yep.
So That's the first point there.
But don't mess with any of Sharon's children.
No, man, don't mess with Sharon's
You have to
children.
show them love.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. You can wind up reading this later, but there's certain things that AI is good with, and it's when you don't have an idea or you need to generate a bunch of different possibilities, you wind up saying, okay, generate 10 different ideas about, and you'll look at it and you'll go, oh, okay, well, I didn't think about that one. And so I think one of the things that I tried across all 5 was give me 10 fundraising ideas for a nonprofit community media organization. And then I got the list and I said, well, yeah, that would work in a big town, but so then I added to the prompt, I added the population of the area, of the community, and put that in, and got a different list that was better for a smaller area. So that's an example of both trying multiple tools, but also kind of using that for brainstorming. It was coming up, it was suggesting things that I wouldn't have thought of. And that's something that if you've got a lot of people in your organization, of course you can brainstorm inside your organization. If you're working solo, sometimes you wind up getting stuck, and this is useful as kind of a partner to bounce ideas off of. It's good from that. It's good for summarizing things and dealing with quantity, because it's a computer program. So it might be better than a human for dealing with bulk things. It's good for when facts or precision don't matter. You've got to worry about what happens, because it will wind up saying very authoritatively something that's completely made up.
Absolutely.
And so it's like my 14-year-old nephew who was on the spectrum, and he had an answer for everything. And at one point I called him on it. I said, David, that's not right. And he goes, they wanted an answer. They didn't ask me for the right answer. So this kid, boom, speaks with authority, and it totally made up.
And it's using probability to
Yes.
divine an answer.
Yeah.
So
There's
it
no
doesn't
reasoning.
necessarily mean that it's the correct one. And so, it's trying to give you an answer. It's doing, this is what you wanted me to do, right? So fact check.
Just a quick question.
Mhm.
I'm bilingual, so sometimes I code switch without realizing it. And I was wondering, how does it work with other languages, or if you go back and forth between English and Spanish, or whatever language?
Spanish is probably the best second language to use with it, because there's more it's been trained on more Spanish input than it has on some smaller languages with less representation out there on the internet. As far as later on, I'll talk about captioning, but literally what you say is you wind up needing to make sure you're using a model that isn't just English language, and you can get a smaller model by saying medium.ing for English. But you say model equals medium, and then you say language equals Spanish, or I'm sorry, you say translate, and then you give it the original language. And what that will do is that will take Spanish audio and produce a English language transcript of it. If you do it the other way, if you leave that off and you do the command line the same way you would do an English language thing, what you get is you get a very detailed and very accurate Spanish language transcription and captions. And so it's important. We do a radio show that's in Spanish, and so a podcast weekly, and so I wind up having to use a different command line for producing transcripts and captions from that than from my English ones, just because of that, because I don't want the Spanish transcript, I want the English transcript in that case. Let's see, what have we got? Oh, and so we talked about some things where AI is good. Where shouldn't you use it? Anything that requires judgment, anything that there can be serious consequences from these hallucinations or from making up facts. Anything that has, these models are trained on the internet, so they're great for dominant culture. They're not great for underrepresented populations and community cultures and communities. So that's an area where you might not want to use AI.
So 2 years ago, Daniel Krasik did at this conference a talk on AI. And at that point, just the day before his talk, and I can't remember, this is a terrible thing, I can't remember which school shooting it was, but there was a school shooting. And the administration of the school sent condolence letters to the students, totally written by ChatGPT. So this is an example of a time not to use. Like, it was awful. It was really,
So kind of how do you learn more about AI? How do you keep up with what's going on? There's a program on the iPad called Flipboard. And what it is, it's a news it's an aggregator of information, and you wind up subscribing to topics. And then your feed, that feed is customized for you, and there's one there called AI ML LLM is the topic. And if you subscribe to that, you wind up getting access to this thing that there are probably 10 posts a day, 10 articles from different internet blogs or news organizations about AI. Some of them are going to be way over your head, or some of them will be too technical, but just wind up reading that and you'll wind up finding about, there'll be how-to articles, there'll be very technical articles, there'll be academic papers on AI. So that's something that I use to keep up. The other thing is ZDNet, TechRadar, and NewsStack are websites that seem to have a high proportion of AI, of useful AI articles. Again, that's for me. If you're a creative, you make I don't care about any of this stuff. Here's just a list of my the tabs that I was collecting for this presentation, and you don't need to, you can't really read that, but the first tab up there says John's ebook library, artificial intelligence. There's a list, there are 168 ebooks in my ebook library about AI. Again, some of them are going to be very technical and programming, but some of them are going to be things like this one, The Loop, How Technology is Creating a World Without Choices. Here's a thing about the Oxford Handbook of Digital Ethics. Programming. Nexus, that's actually an interesting book. A Brief History of Intelligence. Anyway, you get the point. So you can wind up going through and reading these books or downloading these books if you want to.
I still like, there's an AI for that.
Yeah. Well, old people take in information and learn differently than young people, and so some people want a book. Is there an AI for dummies? Yes, there is an AIs for Dummies book. Of course there is. It's probably not available as a print copy, though. It might be an ebook. For those of you who are skeptical of AI or who are concerned about the resource use of AI, the water use of AI, the electricity use of AI, the unsustainability of the amount of money that is getting pumped into this field, two resources are Charles Fitzgerald's blog, Platformonomics, and Ed Zitron's blog, Where's Your Ed At? What these guys do is they look at the capital expenditures of the large IT organizations, the hyperscalers, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, Oracle. Microsoft spends more money in 6 days on AI than Oracle spends in a year. And yet Oracle was at the White House on the announcement of the $500 billion Stargate project. So check those out if you want to wind up reading criticisms of AI. There's this article here called 15 Times to Use AI and 5 Not to. That's worth reading. And this guy has also written a book on it, but he also has a Substack and has a series of, or maybe he's Medium instead of Substack, But he's got a series of blog posts. I've got 3 of them listed here. Again, I won't go through all these, but these things, because you've taken a picture of the QR code, you have the links, and you can just click on the links and be taken to them. I talked about Mac Live Captions. It's actually on the screen right now. You don't need the latest version of AIs, of iOS, or of Mac OS. You can't save the captions at this point. It's just on the screen. But imagine if you had that in the room during the plenary when the people were talking fast and you can't read it. Imagine if that thing was up on the screen. There are better things and more vendor-specific things than this. This is free with a Mac. And so this might be something that you wind up using on a
It's
side
only for
screen.
Mac, there's no like PC version?
Nope, this is literally something, this is a piece of Apple's artificial intelligence that they're releasing for the newer operating systems, and they've figured out that they could backport it to the, at least one generation back.
So that's included in the updates.
Yeah,
Yes.
yep. Yeah, so I'm running, oops, that's Safari. So I'm back on Sonoma 14.7.4, and the new version of Mac OS is called Sequoia. So this is the latest version, this is the latest updates before Sequoia. And the reason why I'm not on the latest version is I've got an ironclad rule. You don't update your operating system a week before a presentation. Ask me how I know. Where's the steering wheel? Okay. There's a little website called Goblin Tools, and if AI is scary and unapproachable, Goblin Tools is kind of interesting. It's a free site. There are all sorts of things. They pitch it as helping neurodiverse people. So if Daniel was here, Daniel would be a prime example of someone who's neurodiverse. He thinks differently than the rest of us do. And so it's tough trying to communicate both ways. And so this thing, a formalizer, is one that takes chaotic thoughts and turns them into classy ones, or vice versa. So let's just take something. These are my presentation notes. And then here, make my text, and the answer, and the options are more professional, more technical, more accessible, more polite, less snarky, angrier, easier to read, more formal, more informal, more sociable, waffle, more to the point, unwaffle, less emotional, more passionate, more sarcastic, grammatically correct, bullet points, a single word, thesaurus mode. This thing is a blast, and I use it because I deal with computers, precision is important to me, but I have a tough time being concise. Precise, concise, they're kind of on a spectrum. And so I'll take an email that makes sense to me, which is very detailed, because I've gotten comments from EDs saying, I didn't read your email. It's like, nobody reads that because it's like long and boring and it's got links in it. So I've started taking my emails and putting it into this thing and trying different tones. And so this is a very quick, specific tool. You could probably do the same thing in any of the ones that we've spent time talking about. But this is an example of a tool that's kind of single purpose. And these things up here, these things at the top here, man, I don't know if I did this, or find a job in the AI industry, identify your skill. Okay, so neurodiverse people sometimes have a problem when they have a big thing, they're unable to chunk it down into each step. And so that's all this thing, Magic To-Do List, does. Oh yeah, breaking things down so you don't. So it's like, instead of getting stressed about something, you put the item in here, and then you click a button and you choose how many chili peppers, how many spicy, what level of detail do you want? Do you want 1 chili pepper, or do you want 5 chili peppers? So for my neurodiverse nephew, the prompt was, get a job, find a job. And there's a thing here where you can estimate the amount of time each step is going to take, and it said it would only take him 29 days, 4 hours, and 36 minutes to find a job. Okay, just do the steps. Here's your recipe. Anyway, so this was one of the first things I found. It was fun. It was useful. It wasn't intimidating. And so this is Goblin Tools. Perplexity. I tried that, and I like it because of the additional, the related searches. And I've got an example of a Perplexity search here. Suggest a framework for evaluating what types of tasks AI is good at. And it says repetitiveness, precision, complexity, hazardous environments, blah, 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 ethical and practical considerations, assess risks like bias, fairness, and explainability using ethical evaluation frameworks. And it's got a little footnote there to a link. And then here's this related thing, so you can just click through. These are different slices through the same information, but you don't have to reprompt. You can just use this. You can just check to see these. Okay, Whisper. Whisper was released by OpenAI about 6 months before ChatGPT came out. And ChatGPT is cool, but to me, Whisper is cooler because it's captions and transcripts, and that's all it does. There's a product for the Mac called Mac Whisper. That's not Mac Whisper. So Mac Whisper is free, and they have a paid version that costs about $50. The paid version adds batch you can batch 10, 20, 100 things together, and then it'll just work through the queue on them. On an Apple M2 laptop, it does about 7.5 seconds of audio for every real second. So you're doing it 8 times faster than the length of your audio or your video. It's probably easy, using a Mac, it's one of the easiest ways of getting captions out.
We got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'll skip the stuff on local AI transcription, other than I bought a $300 graphics card, put it in an old surplus PC that the center wasn't using, and I've run 20,000 hours of video through there. I've done 10 years of transcripts of local government meetings, 3 years of our radio station's podcasts, 5 years of Access Humboldt Public Access series, and about 200 personal channels. So I don't know how much that would cost with any of the paid captioning services, but Access Humboldt doesn't have any money, and this allows me to do it. It's happening offline. That's true of Mac Whisper as well. It's doing it on your local machine. It's not you're not sending the audio up to a cloud and then the transcript is coming back down. It's happening on your machine, on your device. It doesn't leave. Okay, you got the AI tool that does captions or transcripts. That's not, where's the rest of your thing? Are you going to review your captions or transcripts? Are you going to correct your transcripts? The most common thing with us is that we have a town called Arcata. That gets translated as Arcadia. Why does that happen? Because Arcadia is a larger city than Arcata is, and to Jackie's point, all this stuff is doing is working off of mathematical probability. And so it sees something that, is a word that has Arcata, it winds up going Arcade, and it skips over to Arcadia. So that's a sort of a word pair that you would want to wind up correcting, and you can do it automatically, that says, we're never going to talk about Arcadia. Arcata is what it is. Humboldt County often gets translated as Humboldt. nobody in Humboldt County is humble, especially not, I mean, in the context of government meetings, you know, nobody is going to be talking about humble. So that's again a word pair that you can just substitute. And you need to know, this is the real key about when you start using AI. You need to have enough knowledge about what you're doing to know when it's going off the rails. And one of the articles that I listed in the resources talks about a study. Microsoft did a study about relying on AI kills your critical thinking skills. So people get lazy, you know, because they've had a good experience with it. It's like dealing with an intern. If your first experience with an intern is great, you wind up backing off of the check-ins and the supervising, and the next semester you get an intern, and it's just a completely different experience, but it takes you a while to figure out that when you're asking them how things are going, and they say, it's going great, well, if you don't check the work, it's gonna be a problem 2 months down the road when you find out that things haven't been going properly. So that's important to think about. I think that's it, pretty much.
That leaves us with a little time for some questions. Yeah. We have a little time for questions. Yes.
This is off, skip it, but stable diffusion. Have you guys heard of that already?
We didn't really.
Because I'm afraid of that. You know, I'm on my way to just suck it up and go to Whisper and maybe figure out a way to tackle it, but I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are on it. Because it's a whole different thing,
Yeah.
but it creates some amazing, out of this, it's like,
I've not really played with it myself. I have a couple friends of mine who have done quite a bit with it.
okay, because I think there's some coding involved and that's
Haven't?
Yeah, it is definitely on the more advanced edge. So,
okay.
but I wouldn't be afraid of it.
I was hoping.
I think that
By saying this, I guess I'm just challenging myself at this point. So now when I go home, next year when I come back, I'll be like, hey, I figured it out.
cool. Do that. That's a perfect segue to. There is nothing that we can tell you or show you or give you links to that is going to replace getting your hands in there.
And it won't matter because in 2 months it'll all be different anyway.
Exactly.
And your experience, I mean, the tools improve, but yeah, everything changes.
So like for me, I've been trying to play with DeepSeek recently, but it gives me like a process of like, okay, like for example, I want a voiceover script with this, right? And they'll be like, okay, I think that you want this. So here's my thought process. It's just like, I don't care about your thought process.
It's like a teenager who wants to talk at you, you know, a very communicative teenager. It's like, just give, you know, can we just get the result out? But yes, it's one of the models that tries to incorporate reasoning. So it's giving you supposedly insight into how it came up with the answer. And yes, it's very wordy.
It's very rare, and sometimes I'm just like, I just want the blatant answer, so I go back to ChatGPT, and I keep my AI programs quite minimalistic for what I need. So DeepSeek could be fun if I want to, you know, get into the thought process of how the answer came about. But for my daily tasks, I just keep to what I basically need to use it for.
Just do what I told you.
Crushing the creativity.
Have you guys run across an AI program that kind of combs local events and publications and stuff like that, so you don't have to like check?
So kind of aggregating.
Yeah, just sort of like gather all that info for you, just to kind of give you maybe a list.
Mm-hmm.
If, you know, not like details or anything, but, you know, for newsletters, event calendars, things like that, to kind of speed up the process of researching like.
We've got a local blog that does that, and they've written some Misto Spooko stuff behind the screen. They're using AI to do that. They use, so we don't have to. I mean, it's literally, they go through as many community calendars as they can find. They go through ours, and they go through multiple things. And so it's great. It's on the right side of their blog. They just have the thing that you can click to find out No, I don't. It's,
I was just curious if you guys have.
Ask ChatGPT. Yes.
This is really overwhelming. I'm with Jennifer. This is, wow, it's crazy stuff. And as a creator, though, are you now partnering with this disembodied AI when you make something? So if I make a graphic and I'm utilizing all of this AI, at the end, do I need to write, I wrote it with AI, or if I do video editing or anything? This is, I mean,
Yeah.
without, it's not like a tool anymore. It's like it's a part of it.
There is suggestion that you should say when stuff is written by AI. And especially, boy, if you don't edit it through it. I tend to lean on, it is a tool. It is a tool. It's as good as the information that you're putting in there. And at least the way I use it, I don't then take what it gives back to me is not the final product. And by the time I'm done stepping on it and correcting the hallucinations and making it sound more like me, it really just gave me some ideas, you know.
So that word tool, I think we're stretching. And I think in a year or two, you won't have to do any of those edits because this thing is so smart, it's gonna, you see, so that it's not like a hammer. A hammer won't just do the work by itself. You have to be skilled. We don't have to be skilled in the future to do this kind of stuff.
So what I keep going back to is when Photoshop first came out, everyone said, oh my God, Photoshop is going to take away all of these graphics people's jobs. And it didn't, right? So I think the same really of AI. It really is. I think it's to be elevated beyond tool is if we elevate it beyond it being a tool, as opposed to using it for what it is, right? It is just another way, and a new and more modern way, and in some cases a more streamlined way, and in some cases a better way. But you are still the one creating the content.
and as it matures, I mean, the focus on AI, you know, we're kind of in the AI hype cycle bubble. As it gets more mature, I think it's going to recede in the background in that it's going to be baked in.
Right.
Nobody, your refrigerator has AI now. Actually, that's a scary thought. But that it recedes into the background. Everybody winds up using it. It kind of ducks below the level of visibility. The whole idea about headed towards superintelligence is there are some very smart people that think that's going to happen. Man, after looking at the output of ChatGPT, I can't see, you know, it seems like it's a long way off from, yeah.
Just speaking to that, like you were talking about voiceover, you could have Snoop Dogg do the voiceover rather than your staff person do the voiceover. So you're clearly making a choice to have a staff person humanize.
Yeah, and even for just the voiceover script, I'm taking information that already exists from the organization, whether that's a press release, from the website information, and you know, ChatGPT is just adding more adjectives, or I am rearranging how it's going to sound like. I'm taking out certain words, certain synonyms even, and still making it to my partner's voice. So I can do AI generated voice, but we still want to have that, you know, behind a real voice in a way. Yeah.
That, to your point, some of my job, actually a lot of it with the voiceover specifically, is making sure I get everything correct. Like making sure I'm saying the proper nouns correctly. I spend quite a bit of time moving up the way individuals say their own names on like YouTube videos to make sure I have the correct pronunciation. Or I'll make a phone call if I have to. Ask somebody else in my organization because I don't really want to get the reputation of just saying whatever's on the script and not knowing what I'm talking about. So I don't think AI is quite there yet, but it is something that we've thought about. And to that point, also, we had a video like a week ago actually that came out that went around our whole organization and introduced people to ourselves. It's our highest performing video on social. So I don't think hearing like a disembodied voice is going to be what makes community media centers like humanized in the public. So I don't see that as being like a practical application that I would encourage other organizations to utilize. I think putting our faces out there, our voices out there, making sure we're known is pretty vital to the life of our organizations. So yeah, just on that point, that like, we could use the AI voice. It would be easier, trust me, like, having to make sure I look up everybody's names and how to say it is super time consuming. But it's important, because that's with our partnerships with those organizations.
Right.
I was going to say, we actually had one of our community partners basically come in and do a PSA, and they originally did the AI voices. And we're like, okay, this is kind of cool, and it kind of got to where they wanted. They wanted something young and fresh. They used the PSA, and then they came back like 6 months later, and we're like, we're ready to use it again, but we're going to re-record the voices. And they got people. Yes, and it's like whenever you hear it on the radio now, it's like you can pinpoint the exact like.
Absolutely.
And it's absolutely horrendous. You can tell. Yeah, when it's an AI voice. Yeah. So human voices, I don't think are going to be replaced anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, maybe down the road for some applications
Yeah.
it'll be helpful.
I mean, some of them you can like do them and they train and they're kind of cool, but like it's a toy right now and it's really exciting. But
It
it's
just
not-
doesn't sound human.
There's a research paper in my related links where I actually made it all the way through, and it's scary because these guys are proposing an entirely different. The whole paper was about what's wrong with AI-generated voices, and so they wound up proposing a different way of chopping up the words and how you wind up introducing variability to make consistent but yet interesting voices.
And the nuances of some of the
Yes,
information
yeah,
too that
sure.
you're providing. Sometimes it's like a deck. You can prompt it, to sound more somber, but what if the person prompting it forgets to do that and they have a whole video made that's really insensitive? And or some information that is hyper local that everybody in the community is really aware of, that AI is just not. It's not going to
Right.
like mention this thing with a specific inflection, a specific level of importance.
If I can chime in as well on what you said about, you looking up how to pronounce someone's name. There's a beautiful amount of recognition that I feel as a foreigner when someone goes up and says an Indian name and they forget if they pronounce it right. If I can tell that they've put effort in to pronounce it right, it's like this very validating thing. In fact, it's very peeving for me to hear when people will just say it however they feel like saying it. And it's like, dude, if I did the same thing to your name, you'd have actually quite a big problem about it. But, some people get away with it and some people don't. But, on that, in regards to the AI thing, the way to make sure that we don't replace ourselves is to make sure that we show, actual intelligence is emotional intelligence, at least part of it is. So showing that level of care as to this thing, because I would happily have AI do a voiceover if it meant that it pronounced all the names right, or if, someone who's Norwegian, and versus, someone who's just not going to care at all.
Right.
But if someone even puts in that little bit of effort to say, yeah, but well, we tried. Sorry, it's like 27-letter word, but yeah, I think that's the difference.
In all consonants.
That's the difference it makes for someone like me, at least. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? No. Hey, go have a good end of your conference.
Well,
Thank you guys very
Thanks,
much.
guys. This has been fun.
Yeah.